Hey, how you doing? This is Christians in a Cancel Culture. It's a podcast where we talk about things that the culture often doesn't want us to talk about, at least not necessarily from a biblical perspective, but we have to talk about them anyway. Speaking about talking, I want to talk today about 3 reasons your woke friend may not be talking to you anymore. It's happening, We're in the middle of a crusade. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. Whether we call it cancel culture, the woke movement, the social justice movement. There's basically a crusade going on in American culture to revise our understanding of the basics. It's a crusade to revise our understanding of social justice, of marriage, of sexuality, of racism, of equality, a crusade to revise our understanding. Now, in any crusade, there is a cause to fight for, and there are infidels to convert. And if the infidels won't be converted, then you got to silence them. That's the essence of cancel culture, to silence the infidels who will not be converted. Now, I got to tell you, 20 years ago or so, if I'd have heard somebody talking the way I'm talking today, I would have said, man, you need a Valium, take a nap. You're sounding paranoid. And I don't want to get so into antagonistic thinking that I'm always seeing the culture is the enemy and the people we have to be fighting against. But you'd have to be pretty naive not to recognize that we are living in a time when the Christian distinctives, I mean clear Christian distinctives on the basics of life and the human experience, are not only disagreed with, but they're becoming less and less acceptable. And this is exactly what Paul predicted when he said the time's going to come when they will not endure sound doctrine. Well, that's basically what's happening now. And that may be why you've got some friends or family members who have decided to withdraw from having a relationship with you. I want to give you 3 reasons why that seems to be happening. This type of thing started happening with public figures and politicians, right? You'd see somebody make a public statement, and all of a sudden they're getting canceled. Their TV show is getting canceled, or their political career is ruined, or basically their public image is permanently ruined because they at one time said the wrong thing about the wrong issue. But now that intolerance is trickling down into relationships. Some of you, I know, have had family members or friends say to you, if you will not change your views on transgender, on homosexuality, on social justice, on racism, on abortion, if you don't change your views on that, I'm not going to have anything to do with you. And you wonder, what the heck happened? Because, I mean, we used to have at least enough mutual respect where we could agree to disagree. Oh, not anymore. The crusade has come home. The crusade has come home. 3 things are keeping it going, and I want to name each of these. Um, the first is conscience, the problem of conscience. Now, in many cases, the conscience is telling the person that something is wrong. The person wants to hold on to that something. And now, if the person is ignoring his conscience, then the person is also going to want to not only ignore, but even silence anybody who is in agreement with his conscience. I've done this myself. When I was a gay activist, I didn't want to hear from anybody who disagreed with me, because if they disagreed with me, they'd be reminding me of what my own conscience was telling me, and I wanted them to be silenced. So I can remember, just for example, when I was on staff with a pro-gay church, I would have friends who would sometimes come to that church and confront me and say, "Joe, what are you doing here? You're promoting something that years ago you would have never promoted. Where are you with God anymore? Do you really believe that you're right in doing this?" And I would act very confident, but what they were saying was really cutting me to the core. You might remember in Acts chapter 7, Stephen was preaching to the Sanhedrin. And when, excuse me, not the Sanhedrin, but to the Jewish council. And when he was preaching to them a very confrontive sermon about how they had rejected the Messiah, Luke, the way he describes it, says that they were cut to the conscience. Well, what he was saying was basically in agreement with their own conscience, and they just went ballistic and they attacked him. That's one of the reasons people can't tolerate the Christian perspective on issues like family and sexuality and abortion and social justice and so forth. They're holding to a position or a behavior which is at odds with their own conscience. They are ignoring their own conscience. When you come along telling them something that is in alignment with their own conscience, which they are trying to silence, then they're going to try to silence you too. And that's one reason I believe a lot of people terminate relationships with Christians is they're basically saying, look, the position you hold reminds me of what I am trying to ignore. So stay away from me. I mean, that's basically what the problem of conscience and how severe that can be. Then there's the problem of convenience. The problem of convenience. That is to say, sometimes our position interferes with political or social goals or movements or ideologies. I've often said this, wherever the gospel is preached, somebody is going to be inconvenienced. Wherever the gospel is preached, somebody is going to be inconvenienced. So just for example, in Acts chapter 19, Paul goes to Ephesus and he's preaching, okay? Great revival. Now, Ephesus was a city largely given over to the worship of the goddess Diana. And, the religion of Diana was not just a religion, it was an industry. I mean, there was a ginormous temple there. And of course, there was a lot of money to be made if you manufactured either shrines or icons dedicated to Diana. Well, when Paul started preaching the true God and Jesus as the way to the true God, why a lot of people turned away from worshiping Diana and they took out their shrines or their different artifacts to Diana, and they burned them in the middle of the city. Now, Demetrius, one of the guys who manufactured those shrines and artifacts, saw what was happening, and he got together some of the other guys in the area and said, hey, look, this Christianity business is bad for our business. We got to do something to stop it. So they stirred up a riot against Paul. Why? They were inconvenienced. The gospel was being preached and somebody was being inconvenienced. You know, a lot of people are very committed to different social movements, different political movements, different ideologies. And if what you believe is at odds with those ideologies, they may really feel that you, just by your very belief system, have become a major inconvenience to them. And that may be one reason why they no longer want to have a relationship with you. Because, you know, a lot of people get committed to causes or movements without really examining the movements, but they're just sort of blindly passionate about it because this is a time when people jump quickly on bandwagons without examining the bandwagon they're jumping on. And I think that speaks to the need a lot of people have for a cause. I don't know if that's all bad. Actually, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's a God-given thing. I think we have a need to be a part of something noble, a part of something that is inspiring. You know, I think we have a need to fight a villain. I think we have a need to defend the oppressed. So if somebody comes along and says, hey, people, here's a villain to fight, here are some oppressed people to protect, a lot of us go, yeah, sign me up. Because we want to be a part of something noble. We want to be a part of something good. Is that bad? No, that's not bad. But here's what's bad. What's bad is jumping onto a particular cause without examining the merits of the cause. The responsible thing to do is to determine, is there really a villain? Is this the villain? And is this really what he's guilty of? And are these people really oppressed? But these days, if you just wave a cause in front of people, a lot of them will jump on that bandwagon. And that's why in a lot of cases, people go, hey, what you stand for is inconvenient to my cause. It's sort of like a new kind of a Puritanism, where if you are not fully committed to the same ideology I'm committed to, I can no longer have interaction with you. And that convenience factor, that could be a second reason why your woke friend or woke loved one or family member is no longer speaking to you. But then there's a third possible reason. It's 3 C's we're talking about: conscience and convenience, and then finally conviction. Genuine, true conviction, because there are true believers, you know. There are true believers who would say, hey, I really believe that you are dangerous. I really believe that what you stand for is destructive. Saul of Tarsus was a true believer before he became Paul the Apostle, you know. Saul of Tarsus was fully committed to persecuting the Church of Jesus Christ. And yet he made an interesting statement when he said, hey, you know, I've lived all my life in good conscience before God. Now, what he wasn't saying was, I've always been right. But what he was saying was, I always did what I did, really feeling that I was doing the right thing. Now, can people be fully convinced they're doing the right thing and be fully sincere when they are sincerely wrong? Of course they can. Of course they can. There are plenty of cults out there right now in which people fully believe that a certain person is the Messiah or a certain cause is a just cause, and they're fully committed to it. They're true believers. My gosh, 9/11 in 2001, there were some true believers who wreaked havoc on this country, fully believing that what they were doing was right in the sight of God. So, well, yeah, there really are true believers. You know, Jesus said not too long before he was arrested to his disciples, there is going to come a time when the person who kills you is going to actually think he is doing God a service. Have you really thought of that wording? There will come a time when the person who kills you will sincerely believe that by doing that, they are doing God a service. Well, now, how do we respond? When you've got a woke friend or family member or loved one who is saying, hey, your position as a Christian on key social issues makes you completely unacceptable to me. I don't want a relationship with you. Let me offer a few points that I think you can use to reason with the person. One, remember, try to defend without attacking. Try to defend without attacking. That is, defend your right to hold a position without attacking the person who holds a position which is at odds with yours. And try to reason with the person. When you reason with somebody, you ask them questions, and questioning is an awfully good way to keep the conversation going. Somebody says, you're a hater, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, or you're a transphobe, or you're sexist, or you're racist, or you're whatever label they're throwing at you. Instead of just saying, no, I'm not, it's a good idea to question, like, well, can you help me understand what your definition of a transphobe is, or a racist, or a homophobe, or a misogynist? Can you help me better understand what you mean when you say, I am such a person? And then you can take the questioning a little further by saying, look, is it reasonable to say that if I disagree with you, I thereby hate you? Is it reasonable to say that because I have a particular moral standard, that in and of itself causes me to hate people? Do you believe that anything is wrong? And the person will say, well, of course I believe something is wrong. I mean, I believe some things are wrong. Okay, great. Do you hate everybody who you disagree with? Well, of course I don't hate them. I just disagree with them. Well, hey, thank you very much. I couldn't have said it better myself. You see, you reason with people based on a common understanding of, hey, what words are we using and what is the meaning of those words when you say sexist or racist or homophobe or what have you? So you want to basically try to defend, that is, to defend your right to hold a position without attacking the person who holds a position different than yours. And you want to inquire as to what that person means when they throw out accusations at you. And you want to try to attempt dialogue. You want to try to attempt a respectful conversation. And of course, you want to be clear as possible. Try to make sure that when you have a conversation with someone who's opposing you, they're not going to be able to walk away without knowing where you stood. Even if they still disagree with you, at least try to make sure that you've made your points as clear as possible to them, that you have tried to reason with them, and that you've taken basically an adult position with gentleness and with clarity and with a willingness to hear what they have to say without backing down on essential points. Then finally, of course, you pray. I mean, in so many cases, we're having conversations with people who are in the middle of a lot more turmoil than they are going to let on. And I can tell you that having been on the other side of some of these issues, when I was on the more woke social justice end, when I was theologically liberal, why, when my conservative, theologically conservative friends would confront me, I stayed calm. I made my points. And then I went home and got drunk. And I got drunk because I was in so much turmoil over what they were saying. Well, I know they were praying for me, that God would meet me in the middle of that turmoil and try to give me wisdom and a deeper understanding and a humility and a willingness to admit where I was wrong. That's what you want to be praying. Three things in particular you want to keep praying. Lord, soften the heart of this person who seems so hardened towards me. Lord, convict this person who seems so confident in his position. Cause him to be uncomfortable with error. And Lord, increase the faith of this person to believe that you will give him or her everything that she or he will need to walk rightly before you. You don't want to get overwhelmed when a woke friend or loved one is saying, I can't stand you anymore, you're a hateful person, I don't want to be dealing with you, because then you're going to be overcome by their own sin. Paul gave some pretty good advice along those lines. Let's keep it in mind. Be not overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Well, if you have not yet subscribed to our podcast, I hope that you will. Will you take a minute to hit that button and to subscribe to us? And if in the comments section you let me know you did, I'd like to thank you personally for that. Also, if you'd like to support this ministry so we can go on providing free content online, why just go to joedallas.com/giving, joedallas.com/giving. That'll let you know how you can partner with us. We'd love to have you partner with us in this work. Well, this is Christians in a Cancel Culture. We'll see you every Friday. Love having a chance to chat with you about some of these issues that are so relevant to us. Let's keep in mind what Paul said to any of us who say we're servants of the Lord. The servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle to all, apt to teach, patient in meekness, instructing those who oppose themselves, if perhaps God will give them repentance according to the knowledge of the truth. The truth, well, let's keep it in mind when it comes to the truth. It's not just where you stand, it's also how you stand. Good being with you. God bless.